in this tutorial we're going to be continuing looking through the video panel, which is up here. You can see it in blue in the editing panel on the right hand side of our screen. Now, in previous tutorials we have looked at video actions, we have looked at cropping and reflection and drop shadow, and in this one we will be looking at color controls and video filters. Within video filters there is also green screen or chroma key, which, as you can tell from looking at this particular image here of me, I was in front of a green screen, as you can see from looking. In fact, I'll come up here to the media library and you'll see there I am in front of a green screen. And so in a separate tutorial you can find out how to get that image or video and remove the background using the green screen or chroma key function. That's not what this tutorial is about. This tutorial is going to look at some of the other filters, video filters, and give you an idea of the color controls as well, and why you'd want to use any of those. So one of the first things to bear in mind is the filters themselves. Now let me just minimize that. To add a filter, which like with Instagram and other photo apps, just means that we're going to be adjusting the sort of color and mood of videos or images that we're using. Now we do have color controls which are more basic, and then we have actual filters, and those are not just colors. Those can actually put, they can blur things and give you different sorts of effects. So to just quickly look at the color controls, these are fairly simple, where we basically have we have sliders here which we can scale up and down. So currently by default they're set to 100%, but if we were to drag those across, we can see it makes me look quite bright, like I've perhaps been splashed with orange juice or been in the sun for a while. I've got to say though, I feel a little bit healthier with a bit more color to me than my... It's a bit sad that this is 100%. This was the color of me that night. Mind you, I did have lighting on and everything, but yes, let's say I need a tan. Anyway, so you could give a bit more color like that. I think that's actually that looks a bit more normal to me. You could adjust brightness. Now that looks like obviously we've got a bright light shining. You could make it a bit sort of like that makes it a bit more natural, reducing the brightness, and then the contrast would make that stand out more against the background. So subtle little changes like that can be quite good, and they just bring a bit more color and vibrancy to your images or to your video. And obviously these are not optimum settings that you would always use. It all just depends on the lighting and the color of that particular image, but I quite like the color that that I've done here with this, because it actually makes me look a little bit less unhealthy. Okay, and then moving on down to video filters, you can see that there is the chroma key on there already. And if we now want to adjust some color, so let's say now we are happy with the general color of this, and we want to stand out a bit more from the background. So now what I'm going to do is I've just clicked on the canvas, which has now changed, as you can see in the timeline. Now the canvas is highlighted in yellow as opposed to me in the foreground. So let's do the canvas, and now what we're going to do there is blur that a little bit so that we stand out a bit more. So if we come to filters over here and click on the plus symbol, we'll see now that the chroma key that we had on for the image of me has disappeared, because we're now on a different clip in the timeline. If we click on the plus symbol, here are our options. Now we could add a chroma key, but that would make no sense because we've got no green screen that we want to remove. we could, if we wanted to make a hole in this canvas over here and we had something in the background, yes, we could add a chroma key and tell it that wherever it sees black, turn that into transparency. But that would probably make more sense if you watch the chroma key tutorial on removing background color. But we want to put a blur, for example. So let's click on blur. And now we can see we have a whole selection of blurs. Now, I'm not going to go through every single option here because as I click on these, you'll see we've got many. The idea here is to give you a sense of what you can do, and then for you to explore, the options available to you, and be inspired by other videos out there. As I say in a tutorial about being different. You can take your inspiration from other places, but try to do things a little bit differently so that your videos stand out. So let's say we want the background to be blurred here. So this works. For example, I did this in my promotional video for snackable tech tutorials, where me here in this sort of frozen kung fu position, it looked as if I was kind of perhaps sitting on the edge of a desk, or certainly in the foreground of kind of an empty room with a brick wall background. And to make it look a bit more natural, I put a slight blur on the background. So that would be good for just making the scene that you're setting look more realistic. So here, let's just blur the background. So we've selected it in our timeline, clicked on it. We're going to come up to filters, click on the plus, come to the blur, and we can choose different blurs. Let's try Gaussian or Gaussian. I'll leave that up to you to decide how you want to pronounce it, and click add. Okay, now we can see here that we can have it be sort of very blurred or absolutely normal. So you can move it just slightly, and then that sort of draws the attention on the foreground that little bit more. So that's quite a nice effect. Let's take a look at one or two more. So we're not going to keep that, so I'll just get rid of that. But I mean, have a look through the blurs there. Now with these distortions, they really don't have a place in a lot of the typical editing that you'd want to do. Certainly not. I mean, I'll give you an example of how. I'll click on one or two and you'll see that actually you need to have a good reason to use them, because in your typical sort of usage for what you and I want to do, you might not want to go this far. So pinch distortion, add. Okay, so we can see right now that it's kind of just pinched it up here. So that can be good if you want to give sort of a page turning type effect on a background. But again, you'd need to have a good reason of why you'd want to do that. But I just want to let you know that these are there, and you might find an effect that actually lends itself to something you're saying. So I'm going to just click out of that, come back up here. So have a look through the distortion effects, but yeah, I think that you can have some fun with those for some videos perhaps, but in my experience, I haven't found a good reason to use any of those yet. Color adjustment, this is sort of more necessary, is similar to some of the colors that we've been looking at already, hue adjust, etc. But you can add, these are like pre-made filters rather than you sort of dragging a slider up and down. So if we were to click on vibrance, for example, and add that, and then we slide that up or down. Now, the dashboard itself doesn't show us much, but take a look at the dock at the bottom. It's getting brighter and sort of almost more sepia toned back there. What we can do is actually add it to this forefront one of me, and let's see if we can make me even more vibrant. So plus, come down to color adjustment, vibrance, add, and then so as if I could even be more vibrant, and then that takes it right the way back down, sort of it drains the color from me. So let's bring that back up, but you know, that's an idea of one of the filters. I'm just going to get rid of that, come back here. So you can basically just experiment with the different color adjustments. It all depends on how deep you want to go. The importance of these is that if you have some footage where perhaps, you know, say it's footage or it's something where you need to make a distinction between the color differences of what's in the background and in the front, in the foreground, or perhaps you're using, you know, footage you've got from an old, you know, an old camera or some old footage where you kind of want to get the colors balancing between different bits of media, then this is a great place that you're going to be able to try different settings and adjust colors. Okay, coming down to color effect. Now again, so these are just more, you know, what sort of fun can you have with things. So let's see, sepia tone is a common one. Click on that, add it. Okay, I'm going to undo that. Come back, color effects, posterize. Now again, depending on what you're doing, having the sort of colors be less natural, like that's normal and that's extreme. You know, for certain things, it could add a fun effect if effects are what you're looking for. Depending on what's going on. Obviously in a tutorial like this, there's absolutely no need for any of this. But if you were doing a tutorial that was perhaps talking about, you know, just effects itself, and you wanted to show how different effects could be used in different ways to set, you know, different moods. So if perhaps I was talking about, or let's say I was creating a course on how to create a comic. You know, my tutorial is to teach people how to create their own comics and you know, using whatever, I don't know. That's just off the top of my head. Well, I might do my little introduction, you know, where I am all sort of like a poster. I mean, it's just one little idea. I'm not telling you have to do it. I'm just showing you that it's there, and that you can have some fun with coming up with different styles. Okay, coming back to the filter, let's go down to built in. This thing about spot color here lets you change colors of certain things, and this is kind of similar to posterize in a way. Again, I'm showing you this. You don't have to do it. If you can think of a practical application for these effects, then that's great. So I'll just show you what I mean. So let's add this spot color. So it does this where it's changed my background all into one color, because that, you know, there's just transparency there. My hair is dark, so it's made that similar. It's given an outline. You can actually open this up and say, okay, wherever there's this particular color, change it to something else. So if that were to be my skin color and I wanted to change that, I could click on that, and wherever there is that color, it'll change. So that could you know, have some applications where perhaps you wanted to get a photo of you know, say you had a picture of, you know, a field with grass and flowers and that sort of thing, and you wanted to change the grass only to be a certain color. Well, you could come through here, and wherever you would see grass, you could say replace that color with this color, and then you could end up with a field with blue grass and green sky or something. So this is one way you could actually just mess with colors. And again, if you can see a practical application for that, great. Otherwise, you're not going to need it. All right, coming back to the filter. Then we've got stylize, and then this is similar to some of the effects we saw earlier, where we can choose sort of filters that sit on top and change the way it looks. So you could come down to say pixelate. So say you were you were putting together a tutorial that was about gaming, or something to do with the way you maybe talking about images or something, with pixelation, and that was an important point to make. Well, you could use this effect, and we come down here, you can exaggerate it. You could have some fun with that, depending on what you were doing, of course. So those are some examples of video filters. So the idea though is, don't go down the rabbit hole of just putting filters there for the sake of it, but have a look through them, because you might find that they bring a certain mood or help to really drive a point home, and just bring more vibrancy or something to your tutorial that other people don't bring to theirs. So do have a look through and experiment with these filters on the different layers. So you might want to just use a color filter of some variety on one layer so that it stands out like this one with me in the foreground compared to the background. Have a bit of a play and see how they work for you. So that's it for this tutorial. I will see you in another one.